very good observer, Cole.
We have a very advanced program, something very different.
An opportunity to reduce your sentence considerably.
And possibly play an important role in returning the human race to the surface of the Earth.
No license, no prints, no warrants.
Well, he took on 5 cops like he was dusted to the eyeballs.
What year is this?
What year do you think it is?
1996.
That's the future, James. Do you think you're living in the future?
I am simply trying to gather information to help the people in the present trace the path of the virus.
We're not in the present now.
This is a place for crazy people.
I'm not saying you're not mentally ill. For all I know, you're crazy as a loon.
The Army of the 12 Monkeys, they're the ones that spread the virus.
Monkeys.
He's been living in a meticulously constructed fantasy world, and that world is starting to disintegrate.
You haven't become addicted to that dying world?
No, sir.
He needs help.
I think I'm crazy when people start dying next month. I don't belong here.
You're here because of the system.
I know some things that you don't know.
Yes, my son.
He sent me to the wrong year.
You're certain of that?
Science ain't an exact science.
You had a bullet from World War I in your leg, James. How did it get there?
I don't know.
You're a trained psychiatrist. You know the difference between what's real and what's not.
You said that I had delusions. You said you could explain.
I'm trying to.
I want the future to be unknown.
I can help you. Get you out.
You can't hide from them. Don't even try.
We're all monkeys.
The thing mutates. We live underground.
They're watching you.
I just want to do my part to get us back on top, in charge of the planet.
Hello YouTube and YouTubettes. Today we're going to review the movie 12 Monkeys. And Jonathan, tell us, oh, my name's Rob.
And I'm Jonathan.
Tell us a little bit about this movie, Jonathan.
Well, 12 Monkeys was released in 1995. It's a science fiction movie directed by Terry Gilliam, yes, of Monty Python fame. And it was written by David and Janet Peoples, based loosely off of a short film called La Jetée, written by Chris Marker. And it stars Bruce Willis, Madeleine Stowe, and Brad Pitt.
Alright, so a little bit about this movie, the plot points. It's hard to describe it without any spoilers, so just a warning right here. Basically, Bruce Willis is in the future, and they send him back to the present, which at that time was 90, or actually back to 92. So that's the past for him. Or 95, I don't remember. But anyway, his job is to get some information and bring it back to the present. But over time, back in the 90s, they think he's crazy, and then he starts to wonder if he's crazy, and as a watcher, you don't know if he's crazy or if all this stuff is real. So that's kind of, that's a little bit about this movie. So now we're going to discuss some of our favorite things about the movie. Alright, now we're going to just talk about our favorite actor in the movie. Jonathan?
My favorite actor will be the lead this time. It's Bruce Willis, and I think it's interesting because he broke out, as an action star with Die Hard, and he's great in those movies. But, he has he's playing someone who's uncertain about their sanity, and he's also a little bit melancholy in places, very different from an action hero. And I think he pulls it off extremely well. You relate to him. He speaks quietly, but not without emotion. And speaking of emotion, he has to deal with a lot of emotion throughout the movie, and I thought he's very good at that.
Alright, so my favorite actor was Brad Pitt. I tend to pick the craziest in movies. I don't know, they always seem very interesting to me. But Brad Pitt was kind of funny and crazy and weird, so that's my favorite actor. All right, so now we're going to discuss our least favorite actor in the movie. Jonathan?
This was hard to do because the acting is very good from top to bottom. The only reason I'm going to pick one person is just because I felt like, I don't know, I felt like he could have been utilized more. So I guess that's not the actor's fault, but it's just Christopher Plummer. When you see Christopher Plummer in a movie, you're like, oh, this is great. You know, he was in Sound of Music. He played a Klingon in a Star Trek movie. He's been in a lot of different things. But, you know, I mean, he was good for what he did, but, I mean, I didn't think necessarily he was needed. So maybe this is unfair. Maybe it's more unnecessary casting choice as opposed to a bad performance.
All right, so I couldn't pick one because I think everybody in the movie did a good job for what they were supposed to do, and I don't think anything was necessarily weak, and I had a hard time picking one, so I'm not going to pick one. All right, now we're going to talk about our favorite scene in the movie. Jonathan?
This was almost an impossible task, so I just had to pick one. There might be some other things, some more dramatic scenes, but there's one scene, and this kind of goes to spoiler territory a little bit, but basically, you know, Bruce Willis plays the main character who's going back and forth in time, and Madeline Stowe, she plays a psychiatrist. And, well, there's a moment in the film, and this is summed up in a scene where they're talking to each other in a room, where there's a role reversal. Bruce Willis seems to accept the fact, okay, I'm crazy. His character's name is Cole, by the way. Cole thinks, okay, I'm crazy. But then Dr. Rayleigh, she used to think he was crazy, and now all of a sudden, she sees some evidence, oh man, this guy could be right. And I just thought it was interesting that it reversed the roles of the two characters in the movie.
Yeah, I would say it's similar along that line, but I would say specifically where she finds a bullet from World War, was it World War I or II?
World War I, yeah.
Yeah, and I thought that was a very interesting scene. And anyway, so that's mine. Okay, so now we're going to talk about acting. So what did you think of the acting overall in this movie, Jonathan?
I think it was very good. I don't give it top marks, and to be honest, I'm not 100% sure why. You know, even though I said, you know, I think Madeline Stowe did a great job, but I think she was just given a very hard role to play. Because there are many moments where she has to be frantic, she has to act extremely stressed, and most of the time she does an amazing job. But there are a couple of moments where I feel like maybe it's overdoing it just a little bit. And even though, like Rob, I love Brad Pitt's performance, it is so gonzo crazy, but at the same time, you know, I don't think it was necessarily I don't think it was necessarily a hard thing to do. I don't know. I mean, if you've seen Brad Pitt, he actually plays weird very well. But yeah, I give it an 8 out of 10. So I would say it was solid. It was good.
Yes, I also give it an 8 out of 10. I think all the acting, every actor was very, very solid. And outside of maybe Brad Pitt, which I think was a little better than everyone else in my opinion, I think there was really no weaknesses, but nothing great, nothing like superb, but very, very, very solid across the board. So I give it an 8 out of 10. Now we're going to grade the production and direction of the movie. Jonathan?
I give it a pretty high grade. I'll start out say I give it a 9 out of 10. Terry Gilliam is a very love him or hate him director, and I heard there are some movies where he goes a little bit too crazy. But here, the craziness, the way he directs works, because there are a lot of Dutch angle, you know, sideways shots in the movie, a lot of wide angle lens, extreme close-ups of people. It can look very ugly, but that's kind of the point of the movie because it deals with madness. So the directing style of making it look very disjointed, make the audience a little bit dizzy, was kind of the point. And I think it was just very well done in that regard. A lot of people try to do the same thing, and the movie just looks hideous. Here looks great, and you know, he directed the actors very well. Yeah, 9 out of 10.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I also give it a 9 out of 10. I like the way that as a watcher, as a viewer, you are just as confused as the characters are, and I think that is a great decision to make, and it doesn't really even explain at the end, but I think that it's very well done in that regard. So I give it a 9 out of 10. All right, now visual effects. Jonathan, what are your thoughts on that?
That was kind of hard to determine because, I mean, while it is a science fiction movie, you know, there aren't a whole lot of like regular effects. Like I would say, you know, set design in the future sequences was very creative. And ultimately, I don't give it 10 out of 10 just because I don't feel there's a whole lot, but I do give it 8 out of 10 because everything looked convincing. Like there are scenes where they're like, while like you see giraffes go across the bridge in one scene. And I know that when they filmed it, they probably didn't have actual giraffes, but it looked real. And so that was very good. The way they did the time travel segment, again, very disjointed, and the way the effects were used for that, I thought were really good. So yeah, 8 out of 10.
Yes, and I give it a 9 out of 10. Once again, there's nothing overall advanced technologically in terms of visual effects, but one of my scenes that sticks out to me is when there's all these different mirrors and I guess things that Bruce Willis is seeing from the future, if that makes sense, with people looking at him in different sizes, which is just an interesting visual. But yeah, I give it a 9 out of 10. Now we're going to discuss the writing of the movie. Jonathan?
This is one of those movies I love, but I'm trying to be objective because, like, I think I just love the story. I love how it's crazy. I love how you aren't 100. You're always a step or 2 steps behind the story a lot of the times, and that's very, very much on purpose. You're supposed to be confused. The main character is confused a lot of the time. I feel like I took a lot of notes on this movie, and I think there are a couple of points in the movie where I feel, you know, it's already a non-linear kind of movie, but I think there are a couple times where I think they just add in misdirection to mislead the audience, to make it a little bit more confusing than it needs to be sometimes. And who knows, I could be completely off because I don't know where screenwriter is coming from, and this is one of those movies that you discover each time you watch it. But I'll give it 8.5. The People's David Ajit did an excellent job.
Yes, I'm going to give the writing a 10 out of 10. I tend to look at the big picture, and I like original concepts. And I think that the dialogue was pretty solid in terms of lines by, you know, the actors and stuff. And I don't think there was anything cheesy or bad about that either. But overall, I give it a 10 out of 10 because of the writing of the main concept of the movie. All right, now the soundtrack of the movie. Jonathan, what are your thoughts on that?
I really liked it. I don't rate it too highly just because of, in some ways, like Dark City, there are a lot of things that don't stick out too much. Like one music cue is used a lot, but I rate it higher than Dark City because that music cue is really good. It's this accordion, it's this tango, and it just helps add to the crazy atmosphere and the themes of madness to the movie. So I give it a 7 out of 10.
Yes, I give it a 9 out of 10. I agree. 9 out of 10. I agree. I think that accordion piece, whatever that is very, very well written and really adds to the craziness of the movie. All right, now we're going to give our final thoughts on the meaning and the synopsis of the movie. Jonathan?
That's kind of tough because a whole lot is going on in this movie, and there are a lot of themes in the movie. So if I had to boil it down, just to simplify it, because we're talking about this movie, you kind of have to, it very much is about madness. And not just about the main character. It could be argued that the modern world, like the present day, when he goes to the past, is actually mad, and he's not. It really just, you know, and there's a scene in he's in an insane asylum. Cole, the main character, with Brad Pitt's character, they're in an insane asylum together, and Brad Pitt's character, he's talking about, you know, what society deems insane and what is deemed normal, and how sometimes that can be relative. So I think that's the ultimate theme of the movie, but there's a lot more to it too. And the score, I give it it's an overall average of 8.1.
All right, so my thoughts are on the movie. One thing I think is interesting is there's different time travel movies out there, and this one specifically says you can't change the past. Everything has already happened. And so that's one thing that you see at the very end, again, a spoiler, where something that he remembers happened exactly the way he remembered it. And he can't change that. I give this movie a 9.0, a very high 9.0. All right, thank you very much.